Okay, so one of the things that you could do is say, well, you know, I want the best of both there. I want to have both a generalized component of my test team, but I also want to have a specialized sub-team, if you will. And this is sometimes referred to as a testing center of excellence, particularly if the center of excellence is a separate, dedicated facility. Now, you can have a sort of virtual center of excellence, if you will, within and co-located in an existing test team, where you get a group of people together and go, okay, you guys are the test automation center of excellence, right? The challenge with that when it's co-located with a larger generalized team is that there are a lot of forces that are going to tend to pull people off of that as peaks come up. Oh, you know how to do this because you used to do this. Here, let me pull you back into this. And then that ends up degrading the center of excellence. If it's a separate, dedicated organization in some separate location, then that can counteract that. You can organize these things in a variety of different ways. You can do this based on test type. So it's not unusual to find performance testing groups, usability testing groups, compatibility testing groups. This can be done based on technologies, Windows teams, Unix teams, mobile phone teams, right? If you're moving into mobile technologies, we want some people who are experts in that. Or it can be done by application. You know, the organization has particular applications, and we can say, hey, you guys are focused on this. This often has special tooling and environments issues associated with it. For example, the performance testing. You need to have performance test tools, performance test environments, and obviously the skills need to be there. Now, one of the things that happens with the center of excellence phrase has been and continues to be kind of a buzzword. And like any other buzzword, like Agile and a lot of these other buzzwords, it tends to get watered down where people use it to describe something that is not appropriate, right? So if you're going to have a center of excellence, a testing center of excellence, it should indeed be a center of excellence, right? Not some sort of locus of mediocrity. You know? So it's going to be excellent, make it excellent, you know. Here's a case study. One of our clients, Computer Associates, they used to be called Computer Associates, they now go by CA, has 3 testing centers of excellence. And they wrote an article about this that was in Software Testing Performance magazine. I helped them write this. One of them is in Hyderabad, and this is they have their India Technology Center, and there's a testing center of excellence within that. Accounts for 45% of their testing resources, and they are organized around product lines. That's how they've chosen to do that. So they've got different people there that are dedicated to different products, which makes sense because some of the CA products are very specialized types of products, mainframe, enterprise management types of products. They have a center of excellence in Beijing. I was lucky enough to visit that earlier this year, and I was unlucky enough to visit it on the coldest recorded day in the last 50 years. So my ears are attached, and there was no surgery required to get them reattached, but it felt like there would be walking around in that air. Anyway, they have their China Technology Center, and this is more technologically focused rather than application focused. So they have C and C++ and Java and Windows and Unix skills there, different groups. And they do testing for the products that require those particular technologies. That's how they get assigned that work. And then they have a group in Prague, the Czech Republic, another place I was lucky enough to visit, though again very cold and snowy when I was there, that is focused on mainframe and automation. So you can see there are some organizing principles behind each of these centers of excellence, and they're different. So you don't have to have, say, 3 centers of excellence that are all organized around the same organizing principle. You could say, I'm going to have an application organization. I'm going to have a technological organization. I'm going to have a testing-focused automation organization, and that can work. Okay, so finally, outsourced testing service providers. There can be various reasons for using an outsourced testing service provider, leveraging skills, as I mentioned before, or infrastructure in the case of compatibility testing. It's a common and a good reason to use an outside testing service provider. If you don't need to build those skills, you don't need to purchase that infrastructure, why do it? Another reason that we've seen with some of our clients is that there can be kind of politically delicate tasks that have to be done from a test point of view for whatever reason. The results are likely to be very controversial, and rather than make some individual or individuals within a test team be the lightning rod, you hand it off to an outside organization. Let them get scorched. So you know, that can help. Handling the peak workloads that can arise. If you just have great fluctuations in the amount of testing work that needs to be done, particularly if there's a lot of, say, manual regression testing that has to be done, it's just not possible to do it in an automated fashion. It has to be done manually. You know, a lot of this manual regression testing that pops up every time you enter a test execution period but then goes away, that could be a reason to use an outsourced testing service provider. And notice that that's completely different than the leveraging of skills and infrastructure, right? So the right vendor in one situation wouldn't necessarily be the right vendor in another situation. In some cases, when there's outsourced development being done, it's desirable to have testing relatively near those developers, so you select a testing service provider that's located close, at least in the same time zone, so there can be communication. And, of course, reduction in cost is always another consideration. But it's important from an organizational point of view, if you're going to use outsourced testing service providers, understand why you're doing it. We've seen a lot of clients where they really didn't think through this, I won't say a lot, but enough. They didn't really think through very carefully why they wanted to do it. They had pain related to testing. They thought that they could make that pain go away by, you know, collecting it up and throwing it over the fence. But that typically doesn't work, because if you've got a messy situation that's contained to a single site, throwing it 10,000 miles one way or the other around the globe, it's not going to get less messy when it lands. It's now become more messy. Okay, so some things to think about if you are going to do outsourced testing. Selection of the right service provider, again, based on skills. Figuring out how to divide up the testing work to be done so that the appropriate tasks are given to the appropriate people, appropriate groups. Logistics, there are a lot of logistical issues that are associated with any kind of distributed work, and that has to be carefully planned and organized before the work starts in earnest. Mapping, integration, and standardization, in other words, plugging this outsourced group into your project in a way that fits, where the interfaces are well defined, the language is common. Understanding project risks. There are specific sets of project risks that arise anytime you use outsourcing, and those should be identified and managed in advance rather than reacted to when they become a crisis. Good working relationships with the people on the other side is also very important. Teams tend to become very inefficient if they waste a lot of their time and energy squabbling, or if there's a lot of mistrust and you're spending a lot of time trying to catch somebody screwing up. You know, the time you spend trying to catch somebody screwing up is, of course, time you don't spend doing your work, right? So when I talk about building effective working relationships, this is not some sort of, you know, let's all sit around by the campfire, play kumbaya, and, you know, roast marshmallows, right? This has actual practical effects. It's not just about getting along with people you work with. It's also about working effectively and efficiently. And staying focused. A lot of distracting events can occur in outsourced situations, and it's important to stay focused on the test.